So we are live, and on my show today is Lebo. I am not going to risk pronouncing your surname because of how many people butcher my surname. What I am going to ask you to do is introduce yourself and tell our listeners who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into it.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk to your guests. My name is Lebo Mokgabudi. I am a South African-born woman. That's correct, yes. So I am the CEO of EagleQuest Africa, which is a consulting company that advises on digital economy and effectively helps clients, banks, mobile network operators, even governments and central banks develop financial inclusion and digital financial services solutions. And I have been doing that for the past 13 years with different companies across different markets in Africa as well as Asia. I am a mobile payments professional or expert, a payments expert that worked with Fundamo, a scale-up that exited into Visa and commercialized mobile money in various countries. And then it was acquired by Visa and, went through that trajectory. But I'm also an entrepreneur. And I have run and founded a shoe company, which was an e-commerce business where we manufactured shoes as well as distributed shoes online to various women in this continent. So Booty Shoes is the brand that we created, and it's still fairly alive today.
Amazing. That definitely is a good basis for us to have a lot of interesting conversations. So much of your career touches on so many things that I'm trying to expose people to and dig more deeply into. But first, I think in 2020, it's impossible not to start with how has this global clusterfuck affected your business? This is my platform, so I can say what I want.
Okay. How has it affected my business? So firstly, COVID has been an interesting experience. I think the first thing is that for me observing, right, how the spirit of collaboration. So it's the first time that I've seen government collaborate with private sector, right? It's the first time where you're almost seeing a galvanizing of community in our country and in the world. Right. I'll just give you an example for my birthday. My birthday was on the 27th of April, and I chose to use it for good. And I asked my friends and family to buy a voucher, and I collaborated with a startup that delivers food and food hampers to people in township areas. And I asked my friends and family to buy a voucher, and then that will be distributed to people in township areas, to women in township areas who now have lost their jobs, right, as a function of COVID. So it's been an interesting experience from that point of view. It has really definitely brought us together. But obviously, I mean, there have been dire straits. Yes, there've been relief funds, which is fantastic, but a lot of them are not going to the people that need them, right? So that then creates opportunity. So specifically on my work, even as part of Catalyst Fund, what I've been doing is working on programs to help startups who distribute services, essential services to township areas, and really try help those startups do more. Right. So I've been working with various companies who work in township areas and trying to raise funds for people to distribute food, to spaza shop, get spaza shops to access stock, enable spaza shops to have digital payments. And really also, I think it's an opportunity and impetus for people to use digital payments more. So it's no longer an innovation at the side. Now we definitely see if you don't have e-commerce, if you don't have digital payments functionality, if you don't even have digital onboarding, you won't survive. So, in this time, yes, it's bad, but you have to survive and almost thrive. And those who already had e-commerce and already had digital capability are thriving, right? So there are some businesses that are thriving through this.
Interesting. I've a comment on that, but I want you, for my international viewers, to explain to them what a spaza shop is.
Okay, pleasure. So a spaza shop is an informal trader, effectively, who sells food, fruits and vegetables, sweets, airtime, as well as data in the township area. It's an informal trader, effectively, in a small business who sells in the informal market.
Cool, thanks. So my comment on that is I've had this little bugbear in this COVID period of the last 3 months that advisors and anyone with a frickin' opinion is saying everyone needs to be e-commerce right now. And I rebel that. I do not agree with that idea. I think that it's not something to just dive headfirst in, because it can leave your business worse off than it was before. So what's your view on that? I mean, surely you should start thinking about e-commerce, but not just rush in.
I think I have a variant view. So I do think, especially small businesses, right? I think small businesses, the sooner they have an e-commerce platform, the better. So and e-commerce has different variances. Something is just having a website, right? Because some businesses don't even have a website.
Yep.
Have a website and create a digital presence. So the first thing is that I think every business, small, big, medium, needs a digital presence now, because all your consumers are online, right? We are all on Zoom, on social media, Facebook, whatever it is, we are all online. So the first thing is definitely a digital presence is fundamental, right? No matter your size. Enabling people to be able to buy your services online, I think it's also necessary, right? But it doesn't have to, you don't have to necessarily have the full payment portal, because that is quite expensive. You don't necessarily have to build the back end services where you enable stock management online, where you enable people to, the whole process online. You can have it in different parts. So the digital presence is important. Enabling, integrating with a pay fast, or integrating with a payment capability that enables your users to buy your products online. And then you can also partner with a logistics company, because e-commerce is also largely logistics, right? You can partner with a logistics company. You don't necessarily need to also build that logistics capability, because that's another business on its own. So I think it is important, but it's important to do it with collaboration, especially if you're starting out, right? Because it is expensive to do it properly. So partner with a logistics company, collaborate with a payment portal, integrate that into, and focus on your core. I think in this time, a lot of people, yes, adapting is important and being relevant is important, but adapting to your core and what you know best is also really important, right? To sustain the whole thing.
Yeah, don't pivot away from what you do, just add digital to what you do. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I've heard you talk, and we've been on a few conversations, and one of the things that I really loved that you said is you didn't wait for permission to do anything, wherever you went to, wherever you got to. And I think that's such an important message. And I want you to give us an example. And I think the example that you spoke about was at Fundamo, you landed and you just went on a conference or something, because you wanted to develop your skills. So talk to me about this idea of people who wait for permission before they can do anything.
Yeah, I think, so obviously I'm a woman, and obviously I am African, right? And sometimes, and why I say that is because sometimes we are taught as women to be polite. I went to a girls only school. So we're taught to be polite. We are taught to ask for permission. We are taught to wait until you're heard. And why I also mentioned that I'm African is because also part of the African culture is that wait until you're heard, wait until you're given permission to speak, right? And only the elders speak at certain things, and when you're youth, you don't do this and this. So there's a lot of rules, and I'm explaining that because those are sometimes barriers, right, to go for what you want, and barriers to do more than the little box that you have been placed in, right? But I think I had the opportunity, right, to think outside the box and think for myself. So I was also, with that, raised by a very independent woman, and raised and given the platform in a way to ask questions, given the platform and the environment to question things. So I was one of those children that always asked, but why? What do you mean? Why? And you get an answer and you ask why. So I was always that child who questioned everything about everything. I questioned culture. I questioned why we do certain things the way we do. And I'm saying that to explain, the premise of that behavior, right, in corporate that you speak of, Nick. And that then came out to recognize that no one will give me an opportunity, right? In the country that we live in, no one gives you an opportunity, right? And being African also, adds another layer that, opportunities are not given to you. You almost have to go out and either get them, right? And also once you get them, you need to do your best to stand out, right? Because once you're given the opportunity, you need to do your best to actually keep it as well and make it multiply as well, right? So yes, as you say, that I went into any opportunity I was given or any position I was given in the corporate, I didn't see myself as a number. So even from my first role at Deloitte or at Fundamo, I didn't see myself as a number. I didn't see myself as an employee. I didn't see myself as a junior consultant in my first role. I saw myself as a contributor. I saw myself as somebody who's providing a solution in this company, right? They need me as much as I need them, right? I've come here to gain experience. So definitely all my corporate experiences, I was there very intentional about, I'm trying to gain experience. So, in Deloitte, I was trying to gain experience in the information technology industry. At Fundamo specifically, I went in there intentionally to gain experience in emerging markets. Right. So at the time, I was in that place where I was curious and passionate about emerging markets in Africa. Fundamo came, and I was intentional about gaining that experience. So when I was asked, to go to Pakistan or Nigeria to commercialize more money, I jumped at that opportunity. But to the point that you made of going out there and going to a different conference, I noticed that in corporate, there is a hierarchy, right? Certain people or certain executives go to certain conferences or exposed to different things. And let's call it, I was impatient, right? I was curious, but also impatient. And I just didn't understand, those rules. And I've explained to you, the premise that I came from. So I remember, seeking to understand more, right? That I also want to be part of these conferences. I also, want to gather more information. Why am I restricted to a certain part of the information, or why am I restricted, to certain experiences? So I, sought out a conference. I found a conference in San Francisco. I was curious about San Francisco. We all know Silicon Valley and the beautiful things that happen there. So I found a conference, a payments conference in San Francisco. I registered for the conference. I bought a flight ticket to the conference, went there, got a hotel, and got into the conference, right? And what was interesting, even in that conference, it was about payments, and a large part of the speakers, yes, were from the US and Wells Fargo and different companies talking about digital payments and Starbucks, right? And I was the only African actually at that conference, which they also found, quite interesting. But it was such an interesting experience where, yes, I learned what was happening there, but I also got insight that we're doing great things here in the continent, right? It almost validated that we're on the right path. And we actually, in some levels, when it comes to payments, we're actually ahead of the US, right? Which you probably know, we're way ahead. So that was also another interesting, just fundamental experience that I could not have had, if I didn't go there myself. Right. And also investing in myself. I think, not waiting that, wait for your boss to say, yes, now you're allowed to go to this conference. No, you can save, and buy the ticket yourself. These conferences are open. And now in COVID, quite frankly, information is available for everyone. Yeah. Right.
I'm quite interested. You said something that made me want to ask why, like, how did you just arrive there? So you said you don't see yourself as a number, you see yourself as a contributor. How do you arrive at that position, right? And to be very blunt, you're a Black woman without experience. Most people in your position would take a step back, see how the cards fall, and then act accordingly. It seems like you got in and said, I've got something to give. Where does that feeling come from? Like, do you think, where is that sense of I can contribute? How do you spark that in other people?
Wow, that's a big question. So I'll tell you a bit about my even childhood, right? So I was that child who I've had businesses from the age of 10 years old. I was, my first business was, as a child, I used to take juice powder, and it's Clifton, right? I don't know if it still exists, but take Clifton, right? Mix it with water, put it into a plastic bag, a little plastic bag, and put it in the freezer and make ice, like sugary ice, right?
Yeah.
used to do that at the age, I mean, I remember in Deep Kloof Soweto did that and sold that, right? So I took the little pocket money I was given, bought that, and sold that because I sought independence. So for me, I think the impetus, I sought independence so much, right? That
Why?
Why?
Yeah, why? Why did you seek independence at the age of 10? I mean, I'm asking this also from my perspective because I did the same thing and I can't verbalize why.
Okay, so I was given money, right, pocket money by my mother, the 10 Rand or whatever it is. I remember even the 2 Rand note. I was given a 2 Rand note, right, by my mother. Yes. And I noticed that each time I was given that money, I had to be accountable to how I spent it, right? Each time it was like, I've given you that money. So even how I use it depends. I have to be accountable to her. So I noticed that each time my mother asked me, how did you use your money? Asked me for receipts. So she was in a way owned how I used my money. Right.
Oh.
And maybe I needed to disrupt that level of accountability. Accountability is a good thing. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Right. But answering that every part of every cent, I needed to account it how I use it. Then it almost felt like it wasn't my choice. Right. So I had to be transparent how I use the money. And I couldn't almost do what I wanted to do, right? And I wanted to have access to money that I could do what I wanted with. I also realized at quite a young age that whoever owns the money owns you, right? That whoever actually has the purse is the person that owns your actions, right? And I realized that, whatever I was given, by my mother, then my actions were owned by her, right? And I thought, I'm not sure if
I like her, but no, thank you.
No, I want to be able to steer my life and to have my own choices of how I spend my money. Therefore, then I have to make it myself. Right? Because quite frankly, if the money is owned, whether it's your parent or the bank who owns your house, or it plays out in different shapes or forms, whoever owns it is the ultimate decision maker.
That's so interesting. I can't actually even think of whether my reasoning was the same, but that's such an interesting outcome. And I think it's something I relate to in this Jeffrey Epstein thing on Netflix. I don't know if you know about it or have seen it, but he takes advantage of really young girls who don't have access to money. And it's such an interesting thing. The thing that you're talking about is the freedom from the person who controls the money. And that is more likely older people, older men, older white men, and the ability of people to get free from that money is such an interesting observation, especially from such a young age. You immediately saw, nope, earn my own money, make my own rules. And I love that. That's such a great outcome. It's a good relationship to have with money.
That's exactly it. You put it, that's exactly it, right? Earn my money, make my own rules, which then probably also makes me quite disruptive when it comes to
which is a good thing though, which I suppose is a good thing. So you've had such an interesting career, and I'm specifically looking forward to asking you about this idea. In my research, I've come across this concept called expert generalists, and it's something that I've struggled with my whole career. I didn't feel like I was a specialist at anything, and I've built tech companies that all revolved around a CTO who was an expert at tech, or a salesperson who was an expert at sales. And I never had that. I'm always this general skill kind of person. You are an expert at something, but you do have this generalist approach to the world. And that's kind of what I've found myself too. So the question is there a better way to be? Expert generalist, or specialist? Or do you think it depends on the kind of person and career, and it's this big mix of things?
I think it definitely depends on the person, right? It depends on how you are conditioned. It depends on what you want, right? What you want to achieve. But it depends on how your mind is. So I noticed in high school, I specifically chose a variety of subjects because I wanted options. So at the time, the rationale was I want options, right? I don't want to be restricted that I have to go into this career and only do, courses that, are here. So I did, for instance, math, science, computer science, drama, as well, at school, right? So I did the sciences, the analytical subjects, mathematics, and I was good at those. And I also noticed, so I also was very intentional in myself as a child. Like, I noticed that I was really good at mathematics and science and analytical stuff, but I also noticed I was actually really good at drama, at speech and drama. So I noticed that I am a creative and I'm analytical, for me, right? I noticed that I'm good at both. Therefore, how do I use those two to do me, right? And then even in varsity, I did information systems and corporate finance, but I also did media studies and sociology, right? And those are different parts of the brain. So, and that's just allowing myself to be me. So I think it's important for people to understand who you are, what are you good at, right? Are you more mathematical or not, right? Are you more creative or not? And without judgment as well, right? Not one is not better than the other, because sometimes the world says this one is better than the other, and I don't think that's true. Right? So without judgment, all of them are necessary. But to take you a bit through my journey is that, yes, I started out in information systems and consulting in information security. And I realized that at the time, and it's amazing how the world has changed, but at the time, the techies were at the back end. It almost seemed like the
in a dark room somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. Lebo, I think I've lost you. Hey. Hey.
Hi. Not sure what happened.
Be back. That's okay. I can still hear you perfectly well.
Okay, great.
So you were telling me about the techies in the back of the room.
Yes. So is my video off?
Nope, I can still see you. Can you not see yourself?
I can't see myself, but that's why I'll continue.
Okay, wait. Give me a second. Let's give it a try. Let's not make it weird. Is that better? Are you back on? Okay, I'm going to kick you off and then invite you back.
Okay,
cool. And if that doesn't work, you know what? Actually, do me a favor. Just refresh the browser and see what happens.
Okay. Let me do that.
Cool.
Hi.
Can you see yourself now?
Yes, we can. We're back.
Yay. Okay. Cool. So yes, you were telling me about techies in the back.
Yes. So at the time, I noticed, the techies are at the back. They're not making the decisions. They're making everything happen, but not making the decisions. And I guess I wanted to be a decision maker. And I thought, no, I think the other side, I want to be on the business side of things and really understand the business side. And that's when I joined a bank, right? That's when I got an opportunity to join a bank and understand how money flows, understand finance, because it almost seemed like that's who made the decisions. Right. But what was your question again? I need to.
It's a good question. At this point,
My
I'm
train of
unsure.
thought.
It was the
Generalist, expert
generalist thing.
generalist.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And then that's how it happened, that I realized, that, I wanted to be on the side, understand commerce, understand how money flows, understand investments, how money is lent and made, understand liquidity, and that was the transition, right? Because I actually wanted to be a decision maker, and that even informed me doing an MBA. Then I realized it seems like the decision makers have MBAs. And I also want to understand business more. And then I invested in doing an MBA. But I do think, to go back to your question, that it's important to, even if you're being a generalist, right, but to go deep in whatever you're doing, right? So yes, I've done a variety of things, but in all of that, I have had the opportunity to go deep. So I'll give you another example. Is that when I started my shoe business, I started selling shoes in 2006, yes, whilst employed as a side hustle. But when I got the opportunity to almost invest in it full time, I even did a shoe course, right? So I did do a course, and I learned how to design shoes. I learned how shoes are made and manufactured, how lasts are made. I understand where they're from, which countries make what. I understood the process, because I think that's important. Well, maybe that's how I made it. It's important to understand the mechanics of whatever business you're in, because you will be more believable when you sell whatever you're selling to your customers. And the more you know the value chain, you can also leverage different parts of the value chain to actually make your business better.
Absolutely. And what I love about this is you're not saying that you need to be an expert shoemaker, but you need to know enough about making shoes that you can talk competently about it. You need to do the work. And I think it's a mistake a lot of people make about being a generalist, is they just jacks of all trades, masters of none. And the phrase that I prefer is the T-shaped person, a jack of all trades and a master of one. So you do the work in a field, and you're saying whatever field you choose, do the work in that field. And then the latest idea that I've latched onto is skill stacking. So become a person who can stack skills and just add to your repertoire, so you become an expert generalist. So I think it's exactly what you're talking about, is do the work. I love that. You
and also
mentioned
another
that
thing.
Sorry, yeah, go
Another thing
ahead.
that you've also said is that it's important to understand the industry and understand it, so that you can actually engage with your team members, right?
Absolutely.
For in the shoe industry, I had to understand that process so I can engage effectively with designers, right? Engage with suppliers. If I don't understand what they're going through, and definitely not being an expert, but I can't engage or negotiate effectively. Right.
Or know when they're lying,
in the process.
like just in a more straight up way.
Exactly.
So I've also done manufacturing with a stock company. So how do you know they're lying unless you know what they're doing? So that's important. You mentioned that you have an MBA. I am very curious, looking back on the MBA, was it worth spending the money to get one?
Always very interesting question.
I mean, it's not the first time you've got it, I'm sure.
Of course. No, and I find it interesting when people want to do an MBA, right? I actually also question them that, why are you doing it? If you don't understand the why, you won't get the value, right? Because the content you can actually get from exclusive books, right? I can tell you what books to buy, and they are available. You can get the content at exclusive books. I think what it gave me, which I still value, and I'm grateful for the investment that I made in it, is the ability to work with different people from different disciplines, right? It gave me an opportunity to be exposed to work with somebody from marketing, somebody from construction. So in an MBA, you're placed in syndicate groups, right, where you have to deliver, projects really quickly. Right. And for instance, in my syndicate group was a Afrikaans white old male from the construction industry. Right.
That's funny, yeah.
And then a young man, right, who was the youngest in the class, and then a Ghanaian woman, right, very strong-minded and very intelligent. Myself, who was from consulting at the time. So we had and the lady from marketing, right, who was creative but also very sensitive in the way she did anything, right, in her the way she took anything. So it forced me to learn how to navigate myself with different types of people from different industries and still produce good work. I think consulting, you're surrounded by A-type personalities, and it's got nothing to do with being nice. It's just, let's all produce good work. And now you're in a place where you have to also challenge your personal engagement, how you engage with people, never mind just be good at what you do, which was a good opportunity for that. And also how to get people on board to produce good work. Right. So my natural capability is I'm a leader naturally, and how to pull people from different disciplines and let's work. Right. So I think it gave me the opportunity to do that. Definitely. Also gave me the opportunity to learn a lot about a lot of things really quickly. Right. I was exposed to, it was the first time I was exposed to operations management, which was good. And I enjoyed it. First time I was exposed to even management accounting. Right. And specifically how to apply it. So I think in school you learn debts and credits, you learn, financial statements, but you learn them very theoretically. Yes, I came from a commerce degree, but it was all theory, to be quite honest, to be quite frank. Right. And an MBA gave me the opportunity to apply it because you're doing case studies all the time. It's about how to apply that information to a business, and do it really quickly. Right. And I think that even created the impetus for me to go into a constantly changing environment, which is technology and digital technology, that I was able to consistently take information from different sources, apply it and create a solution. Right. An MBA, you're always reading case studies, so many, and you must apply it to a solution. And we did exams on a monthly basis. Right. So there's no time to faff around. There's no time to also try to be perfect, because it also exposed me to that. There's no time to seek perfection. It's about progress, get the assignment done quickly, and then do the exam, right? It also changed my mindset even to exams, right? It's not about reading the whole book. It's about how do you take this knowledge to apply it to a solution. And those are all good lessons that you don't get from necessarily exclusive books. Yes, you can read biographies maybe and get them from there, but those were the lessons it gave me.
And I mean, I'm interested in that because you had started your own business at this point. So don't you feel like you got all of that stuff from being an entrepreneur?
Yes and no. So I think I got a lot of lessons from starting up my own business. And yes, practical training I do think is much better than going to any course. You can't learn anything. I learned the mistakes of hiring and firing. I couldn't have gotten from a book, right? That I learned from my own business about employing people, the right people. CVs are not always the best indication of the right person. I learned that through mistakes, right? I couldn't have learned that at school. And MBA, I do think it teaches how to grow a business to the next level. So my startup was small, right? And an MBA almost gives you the tools of how to take a business to the next level.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Yeah. So you've spoken a lot and very confidently about getting into a corporate, doing what you have to do. But is there no part of you that suffers from imposter syndrome? Have you come across imposter syndrome before?
Yes, I have. Do I suffer from it? So I don't think so. I think because of the way I was raised and what I've explained to you in terms of how I viewed the world, I never think that I'm on a table that I don't deserve to be there, right? But I think that comes because I think being in a girls only school gave me that level of confidence, that I was trained to believe that whatever sport you play, so I did, professional squash, I played provincial squash, for example, and trained to think that, whatever sport, whatever you do, you can be the best, you can be the president, right? So it's not dependent on your gender per se. So that probably gave me a good level playing field, or a good foundation. However, I have to think now in other countries that I've been to, so I've gotten great opportunities at a young age. And I think sometimes, in different environments, it's like, you're so young, what are you doing there, right? So you can feel that question. So I definitely have experienced that, or, you don't have this number of years of experience that we all do. What do you think? What do you know? Right. So probably that I have faced.
Okay.
To answer
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sticking with the idea of entrepreneurs, I get asked this question a lot, so I'm curious about your opinion. Do you think that everyone has the ability to be an entrepreneur or should be an entrepreneur?
So what is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur, I think, is a problem solver and a creator. So I think an entrepreneur creates solutions and solves problems, right?
Okay.
I think that's an entrepreneur. Can everybody create? No. Can you learn to create? I don't think so. Right? Can you, however, be part of a company, a startup, and help build? Yes. So generally, there is one visionary. There are people in this world who see things that other people do not see, right? There are people in this world who have a constant belief that there is a better way, who are always optimists regardless of what's happening. There are people in this world who always see opportunity. They don't need to be told that, look for the opportunity. They see it.
Yeah. Obsessively,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. There are people who are innately disruptors, right? And even if they haven't started a business, if they started assessing their own lives, they would see that thread is there, right? So there's some people who are innately made that way. And if you look at entrepreneurs generally, or founders, tend to be that way inclined, right? They see what others don't see. Because another element of being an entrepreneur, besides creating something, but it's taking people with you and leading people to a place that they don't know exists. Right? That you
100%.
also actually don't know exists. So you need to take them with you. And that's the leadership parts and leadership abilities, and an entrepreneur needs that too. So can people learn how to build and make things better? Yes, because entrepreneurs actually need people who can maintain things as well. So you need both. So I also want to demystify that entrepreneurs are the only thing that the world needs. If there was just founders and people who kept on disrupting, nothing would work.
Who would work in my businesses? I keep saying that to people. Who would I employ if everyone was an entrepreneur? It wouldn't work. Yeah. 100%. I think I like what you say, though. It is a good time to demystify that entrepreneurs are amazing, because this shit is hard, man. Like I've been saying for years that entrepreneurs are broken people. You have to be kind of broken to do this repetitively and take the abuse and the pressure. And most people that I've met don't want to do that. They think they do, but they don't know what they don't know. And when you're sitting on this side of the table, man, you think, holy crap, I just want a salary. Let someone else worry about my bill. Like, it's not my issue. Yeah. So I like that. It is time to demystify that, because for the last 30 or 40 years, entrepreneurs have been cool. It's cool to be an entrepreneur, and it is cool, but it's hard too.
Exactly.
So I've written quite extensively. My first book was about failure. I wrote literally about my 10 years of back-to-back failures. So I don't believe that we talk enough about failure in South Africa, and maybe even globally. It's this big, scary thing that you should avoid at all costs. And my view is that failure is not an end point, it's a through point. It's something you need to work towards, to get through, to look back on and learn from. So how do you deal with failure in your personal and professional life? Like, what's that like for you?
I take it as a lesson, right? I think failure, I've learned over time that failure is part of the puzzle, right? Don't avoid it. Yes, do your best, but it's almost also inevitable, right? That it's part of the puzzle. It's part of the yin and yang. It's part of it. And that's helped me even approach my failure, as a lesson, as building blocks, rather than this thing that I must hide or avoid or act like it didn't happen, because then you also go around in circles and you don't learn, right? I think it's a building block. Yes, I was a perfectionist, and I have those tendencies at times. And yes, I did well, in my early days, but I think what failure helped me with is understanding that it's part of the puzzle, right? So Yeah, that's my view to failure.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'm a human being. I've made mistakes even in my career, right? Never mind personal life, but even in my career, I've made mistakes. I've entered the wrong companies before that added no value, to my toolkit or my skill set, but I learned how to recognize the wrong thing as well. I think what also failure does is helps you recognize, even in relationships, let's take relationship, it helps you recognize what you don't want or what is not good for you. Right?
100%.